All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video. And if you saw my last video where I did the brake pads on my BMW X7, then you saw that I realized the rotors needed to be replaced as well. So that's what this DIY is going to walk you through, how to replace the rotors on your 2019 plus BMW. This works for X7s, X5, 7 Series, 5 Series. Basically, a lot of different BMWs use this same style rear brake. And so this is a process that applies to all of them. So I will show you guys how to replace the rotors. It's pretty simple once you get the brake pads off, but hopefully this answers any questions you might have in case you're getting ready to do this job on your vehicle. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. For reference, I replaced my brake pads 2 weeks before I did this rotor job. They don't have to be replaced at the same time because the rotors have their own separate thickness requirement, just like brake pads do. And if it's below that spec, then they should be replaced. The spec is printed right on the rotor hat, so it's easy to see. On mine, you can see it's 22.4 millimeters. And if it's too thin, it loses thermal capacity, which can make the brakes less consistent under heavy braking. Especially in my case, since I do a lot of towing, I want to make sure that they're good to go, so it was time to go ahead and replace them. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and there are a couple things you need to do in order to make sure this all goes smoothly. The first thing is just making sure you don't do anything to the brakes while this job is happening. What BMW recommends is popping the hood because the emergency brake could actuate by mistake, especially if you're somebody that usually puts on the parking brake when you park. Don't do that, obviously, for this job. And if you pop the hood, that will prevent it from turning on by mistake. I don't know if there are any safety systems or anything that could cause it to actuate when you're not intending to. Popping the hood puts it in the service mode just to make sure that won't happen. Then we need to jack up the rear of the car. So the first thing you do is, if your car has air suspension, disable the auto leveling system. So what you need to do is go into the car, and where you have that ride height selection, you're going to push on the button and hold it for 7 seconds and then release. And then you'll see the light go away, and that tells you that the auto leveling is disabled. Then we're going to jack up the rear of the car. I went ahead and chalked the front wheels just to make sure it doesn't roll forward. And then in order to jack up the rear, you're going to jack up from the rear differential. Just make sure your jack isn't on the cover so that you don't damage it. And jack it up as high as you can. This is actually as high as I'm able to jack it up. So the wheels are barely like half an inch or maybe an inch off of the ground. So maybe I need a better jack for this car, but it already sits really high. So just jack it up as much as you can. All you really need to do is get the wheel off. So this should be plenty. And then of course, put your jack stands under the rear to keep it in place. So here we go again. Start off by removing the wheel, remove the brake pads. I have a full brake pad DIY, so I won't go into that here. Just check out my other video on how to remove the calipers and the pads if you need it. Next, we're going to remove the caliper carrier. It is also held on by 2 bolts, just like the caliper, but this time it's bolted directly to the hub with E16 E-Torx bolts. It's torqued down very high, so you will probably need a breaker bar to loosen it. As you can see, I got so locked in that I completely didn't notice I was blocking the camera, but once it's loose, then you should be able to remove the bolts with a standard socket wrench. Then remove the entire caliper carrier and place it out of the way. The rotor is secured with a retention screw. Use a 6mm Allen key to remove it. The screw shouldn't be torqued down too hard since it only really keeps the rotor in place, but you may need to hold the rotor or use a counterhold in the vanes to prevent the rotor from rotating. It's a really small screw, so just make sure you don't lose it. Then pull the rotor off. Mine came off easily, but if you have a lot of rust and gunk built up, then don't be afraid to use a rubber mallet to break it free. And here you can see the lip I was talking about that got pretty big. It's normal to have a small lip, but after a certain point, it means that the rotor thickness is below spec, and the only way to fix that is replacing with a brand new rotor. To prevent your new rotor from getting stuck in the future, it's recommended to clean off the surface of the wheel bearing and maybe apply some anti-seize to the surface as well. That way, when you need to replace it again in 50,000 plus miles, it comes off just as easy. So you can see I just kind of scrubbed it with some steel wool to get the rust and residue off and make sure it was as clean as possible. And here we have the new rotor. It's nothing special, they're just OEM blanks that should generally give you the best performance without the longevity issues that come with something like a drilled rotor. Just keep in mind, even though these aren't drilled or slotted, they are directional. The vanes inside have improved cooling, so you need to mount them properly for the best performance. Either look at the vanes inside to confirm what direction they should go, or just pay attention to the arrow that's printed on the hat of the rotor that points in the direction of the rotor's rotation. Installing the new parts is just the reverse of removal. Go ahead and mount up the rotor. Make sure you line up the set screw hole and then of course install it and tighten it down. It can help to install a few of the wheel bolts just to make sure it's all centered and none of the holes are shadowed or anything, because that does become really annoying when trying to remount your wheels. And again, the set screw isn't designed to hold a load because the rotor is held on by the wheel itself, so don't tighten it like crazy, just use your hand tools. It doesn't even have a torque spec that I could find, so just make sure it's Guten tight. Then remount the caliper carrier, and again, we're in a situation where I don't know what I was thinking here because I'm blocking the camera again. Oop, there's a little peek at what I was doing, but yeah, hopefully this part is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to reinstall the two bolts that are holding it on, except these get torqued to 130 Newton meters. That's even more than your wheel bolts. So yes, this is very high, and you absolutely want to make sure you get a torque wrench on these just to make sure everything stays secure. It is a tight fit under the rear suspension, and it's hard to get to with a torque wrench, but I can guarantee you'll be in a tighter pinch if your caliper falls off. And yeah, wrap up the job by reinstalling your brake pads and your caliper. Make sure all of that is secure as well, and just kind of follow my brake pad DIY if you need any help here. Keep in mind, again, you will want to retract your parking brake because the thicker rotor will require a little more space, and so it's just kind of a best practice to go ahead and retract that. I will have the tool I use in the video description. It works perfectly to mechanically retract the parking brake and give you the extra room for the thicker rotor without requiring taking the caliper apart or using any software or anything like that. Highly recommend using it for this and any of your future brake jobs.
For the final steps, close the hood and it's time to reset the brakes. Activate the parking brake by pulling on the lever and then press the brake pedal several times so it feels firm. Switch the ignition on and then turn the parking brake off, then on, then back off again to make sure it's operating normally. It's also a good time to check and make sure that your brake fluid level is where it should be at the maximum mark. Then the last thing you need to do is bed in your brake pads. My recommendation is to find an open parking lot or a clear stretch of road, accelerate up to 35 to 40 miles an hour, and then slow down to 5 miles an hour as fast as you can without engaging the ABS. It should be close to a panic stop, so you really need to get deep into the brakes so they're fully depressed, but not so much that you're actually screeching the car to a stop. Do it 5 or 10 times, and then after you're done, cruise around a little bit to let the brake pads cool off. After a few stops, you should start seeing some of the surface coating coming off, but once they're really bedded properly, it should have a much shinier finish like you see here. And that's how it's done. So again, I do have the parking brake retraction tool in the video description that I use, so definitely check that out, as well as the rest of my Amazon store in case you guys need any other tools to work on your BMWs. And hopefully, this is something that's pretty straightforward and will last a very long time. I will probably be doing the front brakes at some point as well, although the brakes were replaced pretty much right before I bought the vehicle, so I don't anticipate it'll need to be replaced soon, but we'll see. Maybe that's something else I can try just to create a DIY as well. So let me know if you think that'll help you out. Otherwise, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.